Well, good evening, everybody. Just started streaming here, so I'm just going to blabber for a minute or two while people are hopping on to the conversation. Already a few of you are here, and we do already have our first comment from Zach. Says, unfortunately, I won't be making it this week. I just want to say hello, though. I hope you are well. I am, Zach. So if you catch us at another time, I did read your comment. And so that's what this program is about. Whereas I do a weekly update on just how I'm doing, how the channel's doing, preview certain things. We preview certain things that are coming down the pike, whether it's stuff that I'm doing on my channel or on other channels. Also, maybe there's some news stories that I sometimes like to preview. There's one I've been working on. It's funny because some of these stories that I've been working on since last spring, and you just got to hold on to the story as long as you can. So I was hoping some of them would have been broken by now, but that happens. Um, so if you want to talk to me in the comments right now, and by the way, if you're listening, just let me know that you can hear me. I always like to do a sound check. But we do the live chat, and this is an opportunity for if you have any questions or comments that you want to ask me, including Lloyd from England. Or if you're staying up tonight at 1 o'clock in the morning to watch me, hello to you. You often do. The Prep Project says hello. Hello, Prep Project. Andrew SD says hi, Andrew. Good to see you. And so I just want to talk here for about a minute. We've been going on for about a minute, and people are hopping on. IDK4003 says, hello, Steve. Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks for all this hellos. And I'm assuming you can hear me because you're saying hi. So I wanted to just kind of maybe actually talk a little bit about last week's live feed where I talked about where I was going to be talking to one of Tim Ballard's inside people from back in the day. And unfortunately, we weren't able to tape something this week. Something came up on his schedule. He texted me. There's been some lawsuit stuff filed that he's involved in, and so he's been really swamped with the whole lawsuit situation, and so he won't be able to wasn't able to tape this week. But we hope to tape in the next week or two. So just give everybody an update on the Tim Ballard story. It's a very fascinating story because we're going to get some insights about Tim Ballard's interesting and unique relationships that he's had with evangelicals throughout the years, including a pretty prominent speaker who will be speaking at my Christian community during Feast of Tabernacles later this month, had personal meetings with Tim Ballard. And I talked to the person who was in that room with them. So really interesting stuff that there was attempts to get to reach out to the evangelical community and actually in many ways use Tim Ballard as a means to reach people in the evangelical world. So that's a fascinating story. Deb Lou says, hello, Deb. How are things in Iowa? I hope you're doing good. And so they wasn't able to tape the interview with the Tim Ballard guy, but we've been on the phone, we've been texting. He's going to keep me updated when we can do something. Next week is the opening of that new temple in Missouri. That's very unique, and I'm hoping to get them on before the grand opening, before the dedication on October 12th. Part of me is thinking of driving out there to go see the opening of this very unique temple within the restoration. It's a fundamentalist. It's put out by a fundamentalist group, but it's open to everyone in one sense. And so I find it to be a real fascinating development in the world of Mormon fundamentalism. And so I'm keeping a very close eye on it. I stay in touch with them and get updates on the progress of this very, very fascinating story. I also want to let people know that since I last saw you live, I've taped two conversations with about the very naturalistic explanations for the coming forth of the Book of Mormon. And then on Wednesday, we taped a segment about the apologetic arguments in favor of the Book of Mormon. So I think you'll find both conversations really interesting. I think we are very fair and approach the subject in a very fair and balanced way that is non-contentious, but it's actually done in a very civil way. And I think people are really going to appreciate it. Also, I wanted to let people know that if you want to donate in the chat, you can get a live shout out for me. Now's the time to do it. Some people give me $1.99. Sometimes people give me $50. I'm grateful for the smallest amount and the largest amounts. I'm very grateful for anybody. If you can make a donation, this is a great time to do it. Of course, I do have links in the description for those of you who'd like to support us financially through other means as well. So the conversations I had with Stephen Murphy of the Mormons with the Mirth podcast was really good. Okay, the Prep Project asks, naturalistic hypothesis. Do you favor single author or multiple authors? Within a naturalistic context, and I actually did like a 3-hour one a couple years ago on Mormon stories. I wear different hats. I could tell people sometimes I wear my naturalistic hat, and then sometimes I wear my apologetics hat and have a little fun with that. And so within the context of a naturalistic explanation for the Book of Mormon, I do not believe that there were multiple people helping Joseph Smith produce the text. I believe that Joseph Smith, within a naturalistic context, was the chief proprietor of the Book of Mormon. I've looked into the Spalding document stuff. I've looked into other hypotheses, and I'm not convinced of them. I think Joseph Smith is capable of this, again, within a naturalistic. Now, of course, I'll go to apologetic arguments as well, talking about that I did talk with Stephen Murphy, and that episode will air on his channel in a couple of weeks, and I'll probably post it on my channel down the road as well. Also, I talked with Jacob Hansen on the phone today, and he's going to let me post my interview, when he interviewed me on his program. I'll probably post that in the next week or two as well. Sometimes that's nice. Not all my people watch other people's programs. Like a lot of people don't watch Mormon Stories. And so I've actually taken some of my appearances on Mormon Stories and posted them on my channel so that they could watch it. And I always get good feedback from people on that. I'm having really fascinating conversations with people. I've spent the last 2 Saturdays actually talking with a person who's involved with the Dream Mine, Bishop Quayle's Dream Mine, located there in Utah. And it's a fascinating story. And I'm actually going to be talking to a fairly well-known fundamentalist this weekend on the phone about it, to set up an interview about talking about the Dream Mine, which is a great, fascinating story. And actually, let me show you the book that I first heard of the Dream Mine. It was actually this book here, Samuel W. Taylor's Rocky Mountain Empire, the Latter-day Saints Today. That's the first time I ever read about Bishop Quayle's Dream Mine. He's got a whole chapter devoted to it. Actually, let me see this chapter number. Yep. It's called Bishop Quayle, the Angel and the Dream Mine. And that's chapter 14 in this book right here. And that came from the Hammond, Indiana Public Library. I actually lived in Hammond for a long time, and they were selling it. And so I first read about the Dream Mine then, and then when I read the book Under the Banner of Heaven, that's when I thought, wow, I mean, this is kind of an obscure story, but Jonathan Krakauer actually devoted some chapters to the story of the Dream Mine in Under the Banner of Heaven. So I kind of gave him props for kind of digging deep in the weeds there. So those are 2 sources I learned about it. And then, of course, now I get to talk to people. I actually was messaging one person yesterday who actually has been into the Dream Mine 5 separate times. And I'm going to be talking to him as well, because I find that to be, just like I said, I guess I keep on saying fascinating. It's interesting. It really is. Okay, IDK 4003 says, the more I sit and stew with a naturalistic explanation, the more I think it supports his official First Vision account. He develops a story to explain and encourage others to encounter God literally. Okay. And then also again from IDK 4003, like John Milton's Paradise Lost, purpose was to explain the ways of God to man. Okay, well, that's a great, interesting way to approach it. So I wasn't really planning on doing a long talk today. So for those of you who'd like to ask any questions or have any comments, this would be the time to do it. I did want to say that I've been talking to some sources, and I'm not even going to give you detail. I can't give you too many details. All that I can say, this is something to sources attached to an institution within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where there are some changes occurring. And it's very fascinating. And I've been using fascinating a lot tonight. And I'm going to be probably talking about it sometime next week. I think this will get some conversations started. So keep an eye out. Maybe I'll do a special live thing. Maybe I'll do a pre-tape thing. But I thought about addressing it tonight, but I decided not to, because there's a couple more people I want to talk to next week to kind of verify some of the stuff that I'm hearing. I'm hearing from a couple sources that these things are indeed happening. And once it is shown to be true, I will come on and discuss this new development that's happening in the church, which is actually interesting because it kind of parallels some things that happened in the evangelical movement over the course of the last 30 or 40 years. They're following a similar playbook, which is really interesting. And so I can bring some context into this whole story too, with my evangelical background, to kind of compare and contrast some of the things that the church are doing with things that happened within my movement as well. So stay tuned for that. And again, I wish I could say more, but I want to be very careful here. And I also want to be very protective of my sources. And I do have 2 more sources that I'm going to be talking to next week, to kind of verify a few things. So once I feel like I could say something tonight about it, but I'd rather not. I'd rather hold on and hold off on this story. Now, there's some people who will like what's happening, and there will be other people who won't like what's happening. And I've told my sources, I said, listen, I'm going right down the middle on this thing. I'm just going to report the facts and let the people decide. That's what I think this place has become, a trusted source for reliable information about things that's happening within the restoration in a way that I don't have an agenda. When I say I don't have an agenda, I'm not trying to convert anybody to my church. I'm not trying to get people to leave the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm just literally trying to get people to actually disseminate good information to people so that they can make informed decisions, and also not only informed decisions, but also inform their opinions as well. So that's what we kind of do. We strive for that. And this is a really important place where they do that. Andrew SD says tons of excommunications. No. Although it does appear that seems to be ramping up, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on that too. The Prep Project asks, can you give us a hint? Really can't. All I can say is that this is a church institution that where some changes have been made recently that needs to be talked about, or that people isn't being talked about, but will be talked about next week on my channel. Ken Kersey gave a donation for $5. Thank you, Ken. And he asked, Steve, I would love to see you interview authors David Butler or Jonah Barnes. Yes, I think I have one of his books here. Yeah, here. I got actually my friends over at the my friends over at Plain and Precious Publishing, the Paul brothers, actually sent this gratis to me in the mail. And I'm aware of the new book, The Key to the Keystone. And I was actually talking to Jacob Hansen about it on the phone today, just kind of getting his feedback on it, because I'm interested in the subject. And so, I think at some point I'll do something on those. It takes time. I do want to take time to read the books, and I'm a little behind. I got to get to Cheryl Bruno's book on William Marks. I gotta get to Taylor Petree's book as well. I was hoping to get to those, so I don't know. But yeah, there's a few books I want that I need to get to, and hopefully I'll be able to get to the Butler's book as well. And yeah, Jonah's an interesting cat. People have asked me to, when I've actually did a Zoom call with David Butler a few months ago with the Paul brothers. So I'm familiar with him. We've had some conversations with each other a little bit, just so Ken Kersey, one, thank you for the $5 donation. It's greatly appreciated. Again, if you want to give a donation to the channel, and also press the thumbs up button so that gets in front of more people as well. Okay, so the Prep Project asks, do you believe that fundamentalists have equally valid claims to priesthood? Oh, it's mainline LDS. Well, I think they believe they do. That's not I call balls and strikes at the annual kickball tournament between the Exmos and the fundamentalists, except for this year they didn't have it, and I wasn't able to go anyhow. And so I call balls and strikes. I don't necessarily give opinions. So I don't know. I think you can make arguments that they have some valid claims to the priesthood, just like the Bickertonites make their claim of priesthood through the line of Sidney Rigdon. So I think people who have priesthood claims, I think they're making them within the context of the Restoration, that people should not just easily dismiss them. Leroy Thomas from England, and keep in mind, folks, it's after 1 a.m. in the morning in England, where he's at right now. He stays up almost every Friday night to watch me. Okay, so Leroy, thank you for loving the show. Greatly appreciate it. That's awesome, and I do love hearing from people. And I'm not going to do a super long one today because I'm seeing a friend who's been out of town for 2 weeks. She would have gotten back home sooner, but the hurricane kept her away. So we're going to hang out for a little while this evening. Good friend of mine. So I wanted to hang with her, and I was going to get ready and head out. But I do like these Friday night conversations. Let me just read something I posted on Facebook earlier today, actually, because not all of you are following me on Facebook. There we go. So now I just got my notification that I just went live. See, that's what I don't like, is I wish they would give the notifications right away so people can hop on right away and watch the videos. So I wrote this on Facebook earlier today, and I'll just read it to you all. Today I had a Zoom conversation with evangelical Kai Van Leuven, a direct descendant of Brigham Young. We taped an interview earlier this week about his new podcast, Jesus for Mormons, which will be released next week. Today, I was mentoring him to help him grow his channel. He actually lives in Hawaii, and we spent an hour on Zoom, and I was just giving him some best practices and giving him some advice, and he really appreciated it. He's a good dude. That's what I wrote. I also had a wonderful conversation with my friend Rabbi Joe Karnas, who's in Utah, getting ready to attend General Conference with my co-host Monica Baumbrau of the Utah Interfaith Forum YouTube channel. And now I just got off the phone with Jacob Hansen of Thoughtful Saints. I know that he is a lightning rod and not liked by some people, but he's a fellow image bearer and a thoughtful person. I hope everyone has a great weekend. And then I hint to coming on live tonight. So that gives you an idea of just a day in the life of who I am and who I talk to. And I spent a lot of time on the phone today, but it's really, and on Zoom. And I'm going to spend a lot of time this weekend on the phone too. And I think it's really important to have these conversations because they provide like really important background. Like I was talking to one of my sources the other day, and I was telling them, I said, listen, even though a lot of the stuff you're telling me is confidential and is not going to make the light of day or is not for public consumption, it still informs the conversation or informs like journalism background. Like you need background information to a story to better flesh it out and better understand things. It's like I tell people, I say, listen, when you're dealing with like the secular media, they don't even understand our language of being believers. They don't even get it. So often when you have secular media covering religious events, it's so tone deaf that it's like you could tell they've never darkened the door of a church. They've never picked up a holy scripture, and they don't even know how to report stories and understand the nuances in stories dealing with religion. And I think that's where what the important role that I can play is that one, I was an atheist, so I understand atheism, but I am a believer again. And I understand the differences between different religions. I understand the differences between all the different restoration groups. I understand the politics that's happening there. I also understand how my world and the restoration, how our interactions go. And I'm also so fascinated by so many interesting parallels that our movements share that not a whole lot of people recognize because most people in this sphere are not bilingual. I'm one of the few bilingual people in this sphere that I can speak. I can speak Evangelese and I can speak restorationist language as well. I can't say I'm super fluent in either one, but I'm good enough to understand this world. And I think that's why it's important that when we have conflicts or stories or controversies, that people who are believers, and it doesn't even have to be within the same religion, but believers in general, see things through a slightly different lens. And I think people who read or watch secular things pick up that they don't look through that lens and they don't understand the nuances and all the beauty and interesting things in our world. Okay, going to get caught up here. Steve, do you have Twitter? Yes, I do have Twitter. If you go, let's see. I'm trying to think where you can find me on Twitter. I can't tell you offhand. I can't. Yeah, I can go on Twitter. Yes, I do. I am on Twitter, but I'm not super active. I'm trying to remember if I have links anywhere for Twitter. I haven't really done a whole lot with it, but I do post whenever I post a video. I do post stuff on Twitter. The Per Project asks, "What is your favorite musical?" Am I supposed to say the Book of Mormon? Well, I can't because I actually have never seen the musical, so I can't say that. Actually, I think my favorite musical of all time, well, concerning where I'm from, has to be the Blues Brothers, of course. We're on a mission from God. Greatest musical of all time. IDK4003 asks, if it ain't Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, ain't right. Okay, I remember watching that movie a long time ago when I was a little kid, but I have very few memories of it. But the Blues Brothers rocks. That's a great musical. Leroy Thomas, what did you think about the book Crisis of Conscience? I always notice the book to your left. Yeah. So this is, and I've talked about this before in the past briefly. Crisis of Conscience, the struggle between loyalty to God and loyalty to one's religion. And this was by Raymond Franz, who was a former member of the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Raymond Franz was what you would say was a member of the Quorum of the 12. He was in the leadership of the church. And he ended up leaving the church, still believing in essentially in the doctrines of the church, but was with the practices of the church caused him to leave it. And it's been a very impactful book within the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. And I actually read that about 20 plus years, probably about 25 years ago, maybe 20, 25 years ago when I first read it. And at the time, part of the reason I was reading the book was because I used to hang out at the bars with a bunch of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses whose lives were absolutely devastated by being disfellowshipped. Their type of form of excommunication is called being de-effed or disfellowshipped. And unlike in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, when people are excommunicated, there's still familial connections and friendships. Well, you're shunned. You're shunned. And when people, young people especially, because all of them were young men in their 20s, their lives were ruined. One of them actually got murdered. Many of them are still have drug and alcohol issues to this day. And so it's a really sad story. And and that's what happens when people lose faith, And but I think the Jehovah's Witnesses can be very cruel and capricious in how they treat people. That's why I don't hold it as in high regard as I do as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Am I critical of certain things of the church? Yes, I am. But again, the criticism is done out of love, not out of trying to undermine the church. Okay. Andrew SD says, I'm currently reading 30 Years a Watchtower Slave. Yes. And I think I may have read that a long, long time ago. I also read another book about a lady that left the Watchtower. This was like in the 90s. So, or the Jehovah's Witnesses. So yeah, that's an interesting story. And again, I did a deep dive in Jehovah's Witnesses when because I'm interested in a lot of different religions. When I befriended my friends, and even my good friend who was actually a genius, the one that got murdered, he was one of the smartest people I've ever met. He even told me that there's the only way you can know more about our religion is if you're a member. So he had a lot of respect that I could go and have conversations on the phone with him for hours about the Jehovah's Witness religion. So yeah, that was back in the day. Yeah, that was kind of an interesting time. I've kind of lost touch with all those people, and I know, like I said, and I've tried getting in touch with one of them, but I don't know, he's laying low, and I don't know. I hope he's doing okay. My homie, you know who you are. If you're happening to be watching, you're probably not. I hope you're doing okay. Yeah, thanks for asking about that, Leroy. It's a good book, and honestly, if you read it, it's a man with a broken heart. It's a man that grieves for his people and for his church, and he really wanted to make some reforms to be better for people. And unfortunately, that organization continues to be very hard on people, and they are suffering. A lot of people are leaving that church, and there's a lot going on in the Jehovah's Witness world that does not bode well for their future. So let's pray for the people who are in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Let's just pray for them because, they are image bearers and we need to love them. And I think if they see the love coming from us, they'll realize that, maybe there are other Christians. See, they're the type of people who believe they're the only true Christians in the world and everybody else will be destroyed. They don't believe in a literal hell. They're annihilationists, but basically they believe that once Armageddon happens and all the wicked are destroyed, then the Jehovah's Witnesses will rule with Christ here on planet Earth, and but only 144,000 of them will actually go up into heaven. The rest of them would be here on Earth, which will be called paradise, and rule with Christ here on Earth. And so basically, they believe that we will all be destroyed. We will not be resurrected. We will be annihilated. I guess one thing that's a little better about their worldview is at least there's not a eternal damnation of eternal torture for for their non-believers. So to their credit, at least they don't have a torturous hell. But yeah, it's a very difficult religion, and it's not one for intellectuals. There's very little. Higher education is discouraged. Many people in that church are poor and remain poor because of the anti-intellectualism in the church, and of course, by discouraging people from bettering themselves, it keeps them in the cycle of poverty and the independence of the church organization. So yeah, that's the Jehovah's Witnesses, and again, let's just keep them in our prayers. And then IDK 4003 says, I was going to say, okay, I'm not sure what that's in response to. Either way, first of all, I just want to say, Ken Kersey in the house, $5. Appreciate you, my friend. Oh, let me give you a like here. See, I'm going to give you a heart. There, I gave you a heart, Ken Kersey. And thank you for your recommendation for Mr. Butler. Oh, about the Hill thing. Yes, about the Hill thing. Thank you. I was going to say, yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you believe, there are some Christians that believe that basically 90% of the image bearers are going to suffer eternal torture and punishment for eternity, and this is a good thing, and this is a demonstration of God's love. That's sick, and I don't think it's in line with the good news. That doesn't sound like good news to me. The gospel is good news. Hey, I got good news for you. We're going to expand monotheism to the rest of the world, make you accountable for hearing the message of Jesus, and if you reject that message, you're going to suffer eternal damnation. In some cases, these people believe that even if you've never even heard of Jesus, you're going to burn in hell. So, like, whoa. Oh, and that they were predestined to burn for eternity. And 90% of the image bearers are going to be tortured. So that's just a form of Christianity that I think needs to be put in the dustbin of history. I think 21st century Christianity needs to move on from that. It's more based in the medieval Catholic Church. Hell was used as a means to manipulate people, to control them, and to raise money. And we can see that very similar to this day, very similar tactics are used, where they use fear tactics to get young children to go get into church. And I don't think people should approach Jesus in fear, because it's about love. And if you're joining religion because of fear, and everything's based in fear, and if that's at the root, at the center of your religion is fear, I feel bad for you, because the center should be love. God is love. Leroy Thomas says, great answer, Steve. Thank you, Leroy. I'm sure a Trinity God can have a Trinity heaven like the LDS, right? Yeah. 3 degrees of glory. Well, I guess let's make a deal. If the Mormons are willing to accept the Trinity, then we'll accept the 3 degrees of accept the 3 celestial kingdoms. Deal? 3 degrees of glory, right? Yeah. No, I don't think they'll ever happen either way. But that's okay. IDK 4003 says deal. Okay. Well, hey, we made a major announcement today that apparently within Interfaith Dialogue right here on Mormon Book Reviews. And speaking of Interfaith Dialogue, don't forget about my other YouTube channel called the Utah Interfaith Forum channel on YouTube. And of course, we have our private Facebook group. So please feel free, if you're on Facebook, to go on my Mormon Book Reviews private group, as well as my Utah Interfaith Forum private group. That we ask you just a few series of questions, just to kind of weed out some of the people that might want to try to do propaganda. And we want people to have civil conversations in both those spaces, which is what we do here at Mormon Book Reviews. I love having these weekly conversations with my homies. I really do appreciate you. I also want to tell you that, in the community page on YouTube, I do post there about twice a week. It often will show up in your feed, but if you just go to my YouTube channel and hit community, you'll also be able to see some things I'm posting there as well. And this weekend, I think I'm actually going to post a survey. Who are you voting for this November? Tomorrow is a month. October 5th is Saturday. It's tomorrow. And that's exactly a month before the election. And I'm thinking this weekend posting, so viewers of my channel, who are you going to vote for? I'd be really interested to see. I imagine it'd be a really interesting mix and breakdown. And for those of you, let's just pray for our nation. And for those of you like Leroy who are watching us from abroad, and I'm sure, and I hear from people, I actually heard from somebody from Australia sent a message to me that's saying that there's a quiet listener of my channel or something like that. So if you're out in Aussie land, good to see you. But for those of you in the rest of the world, keep us in your prayers, because we're very concerned about the direction of this country, where it's going. Regardless of what the outcome is this November, we're still a broken nation that's really neither side's really talking to each other. And I'm grieved by it, because, of course, I'm the bridge builder. I'm the person who tries to get people to talk to each other. And the issue I have with people that go after me, that want to have sides, is that they're contributing to that very toxic environment that's infested our country, is infested our world. And Zach, we appreciate you. And Zach says, I'm Canadian. Apparently, Zach is in the house. I got your message earlier. You couldn't come. I'm Canadian. Can I vote? Well, Zach, who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for Pierre Poilievre next year? It looks like he will be your next prime minister. So that's the Conservative Party. Looks like if the election were held today, would win by a landslide over Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party. Leroy asks, can we vote for you, Steve? Well, I did run for office once. I ran for county commissioner in the second largest county in the state of Indiana, just outside of Chicago, and was endorsed by the major newspaper in the region and was the leading Republican on the ticket. I got more votes than the mayor of Indianapolis while he was running for governor of Indiana, spent $3 million on Chicago television, and I did better in the district than he did, and I raised $20,000. so yes, yeah, oh yeah, conservative for sure, Zach. Okay, so you'll be going for PP as they call him. He will probably be the next prime minister, maybe as early as this year, because they could have a vote of no confidence, but certainly probably by spring. And yes, I do know a lot about Canadian politics. I'm a bit of a Canadian politics junkie, as I am a Canadian Football League guy, and I'm kind of big in the Canadian Football League subreddit, which is kind of interesting. I'm usually one of their top posters, so I like to have fun with that. All right, well, I'm 30 minutes in. This was fun. I'm going to give it another minute. And when I say another minute, if you want to post something in the chat and you want to ask me a question or a comment, now's your chance. So forever hold your peace, at least for another week. So I'm watching the clicker. I'm gonna give it another 45 seconds, and then if I don't hear anything, then I'm gonna sign off, and I'm gonna spend some time with my friend who's been out of town for 2 weeks. She stayed out of town because of the hurricane, and she's a very nice lady. She suffered a stroke, and she walks around with a cane. And I walk around with my headphones because I'm deaf in one ear, and she's walks with a cane. So we got a couple of disabled people who have something in common with each other. If I don't go to Missouri for the temple dedication next weekend, then I will be going to my tinnitus support group, and actually will be doing involved in a walkathon for a young lady that gave a stillborn birth for her child. She's part of the tinnitus support group. We're going to do a walkathon to raise money for people who that would have babies that would be at full term and die shortly, or have stillborn deaths. It's a very sad thing. And there's some cool things that she's doing to help people in that community. Zach, how can I get an MBR hat? Okay, Zach, so go to MormonBookReviews.com, and that's my merch store. And I don't know if we have any of these in stock right now. It's the printer, so they print on demand. And I think that I checked a few weeks ago and it looked like they didn't have any hats, but my merch is over at MormonBookReviews.com. And actually, I have a link in the description to this video. And IDK 4003 says, I can't think of anything. Well, hey, you've been all very active. A lot of familiar peoples coming on in. I do appreciate these conversations. It's funny. More people watch these after they've been aired live than when I am actually doing it. So just remember, typically Fridays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I usually go for about 30 to 45 minutes. And it's always a blast. I love getting the good give and take from people. The Backyard Professor says, parts I will watch. Okay, so there we go. Backyard Professor, real quick, what do you think about maybe us doing something live this weekend? Get back to me, because I'm thinking of doing something live. Oh yeah, you've got your conference. That's right. So maybe it wouldn't be a good time for us to go live this weekend, Backyard Professor. But okay, you want to do it? Okay. All right, Backyard Professor. So look first, Backyard Professor and I may be doing something live. No, let's do it. Okay, we'll do it, Backyard Professor. Maybe we could actually live stream it on both of our channels just for the fun of it. So yeah, let's talk on the phone like maybe tomorrow, Backyard, and maybe we can see about doing something. I'm not going to do in between sessions. Backyard Professor, let's talk Saturday or Sunday. Let's talk this weekend. Maybe we can do something. Yeah, I'm thinking more Sunday. All right, folks. See, we do content creation on the air live. You just saw us book Backyard Professor, me going on his program, and maybe we'll even live stream it on both channels. All right, folks. You all be well. God bless you. I love all of you. And remember, the most important thing is this: all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.